And we're back. Hey, last July I took some video footage of me harvesting blackberries with the idea that I would be doing this video sometime this fall. That's where our video today is going to start. We're going to make homemade blackberry jam. Let's get started. I'm out here picking some blackberries. I've got another large bowl full of them. It's amazing what these two blackberry bushes produce. You can see all the berries that are still on them ripening. I come out and pick a bowl about that size about every other day for, I don't know, a week or two at least, it seems like, and we get gallons and gallons of blackberries off of these two bushes. Now I'm going to show you what we do to preserve them with this abundance of crop that we get here in our backyard. We've got about 6 gallons of blackberries that we've been storing in our freezer. We do some fresh eating, we make desserts and other things with them, and also blackberry jam. This is a good way to preserve the food that you grow and also free up some storage in your freezer. We're going to use a hot water bath canning method today, and this is all the stuff that you need. You need a good pot. A food mill is good if you like to get rid of a lot of the seeds in the blackberries for your jam, which I do. Some lemon juice. I use low or no sugar pectin. You do need some sugar, and of course your berries and the hot water bath canning pot. Before I grind up the blackberries in the food mill, I like to cook them down a little bit. This softens up the berries and makes the food mill process go a lot easier, in my opinion. Most of these food mills come with different size grates that you can put into the bottom. I prefer using this medium one for the jam that we're making. That will put some of the pulp from the berries, or most of the pulp from the berries, into our jam, but will remove at least 80 to 90% of the seeds, and that's the way I like it. If you like the seeds in your jam, then by all means leave them in. Okay, I've stewed down the berries a little bit. Now we've placed them in the food mill and you just start cranking. You can see how much juice is draining down from the food mill just by stewing the berries down a little bit. I think that's a well worth your time step, and it will make this process a lot easier. Okay, you can see now that we're getting to the point where most of the berry pulp is ground down. There's a little bit left in here. It's mostly seeds, and what I do is I just start pushing it down in front of the blade and pushing down as I rotate, and we'll get as much of that berry pulp as we can and just be left with the seeds. Here on the bottom, you can see that this is all the good stuff that we're trying to grind out of the berries, less the seeds, and this is what we're after for a good jam, not a jelly. Okay, since we have the hot water canning pot set up to process these in a few minutes, we just go ahead and sanitize all of our jars. Most of these we're reusing to clean them up and get them ready to go. You want to be set up to do this before you start processing the jam in the pot, because once we begin that process, there's no time to stop and fool around with anything else. Okay, I've got just enough slurry here to make 2 batches of jam. You can't do this in one big batch at a time. You have to do it in the proper amount, and in this case we'll make 2 batches, otherwise your jam will not set correctly. So I've got 6 cups of slurry in the pot here. I'm going to go ahead and add a bag and a half of the pectin that I use, and I know that that's what it needs based on making this jam many times, and I'll show you how to test that here in a minute. So we'll go ahead and add our bag and a half of pectin in there. I'm going to add about 1/4 cup of lemon juice, and now we'll get that boiling and move on to the next step. Okay, our slurry with our pectin, lime juice is now coming to a boil. So now I'm going to take the sugar and add it in there. And yeah, there is a lot of sugar in jam recipes. This is a low sugar recipe that I'm following, believe it or not, but it's about 4.5 cups versus 7 cups per batch. I'm following a recipe put out by pickyourown.org. You can follow Ball or any number of different recipes on how to make jam out there, but make sure that you're following an appropriate canning method to do this stuff. Botulism can grow in anaerobic environments, and if you don't do this correctly with the right amount of sugar and processing in the water bath, you could have problems, and it's not worth making somebody sick. Okay, now we're going to let this come to a rolling boil, like you see here in the pot now, for 1 minute. And according to the people that put out the different recipes on how to make jam, that 1 minute number is evidently pretty important to follow strictly. So I've got the timer set, and as soon as it goes off, we'll turn off the heat. I'll show you how to test this to see if you've got enough pectin in there, and we'll start canning it up. Okay, I mentioned a way to test to see if you've added enough pectin, and it's done by simply taking a cold spoon. I've placed this one in the freezer for a little bit. Place it in the hot jam and just let it sit for a minute. And if I can run my finger through there and leave a clean trail like that, I know that I've got enough pectin in there. If you were to do this and there was not enough pectin, it would just run back together. Now we just take a moist towel and we go around the rim of the jars. We don't want anything that would compromise the seal of the canning process that we're going to show you here in just a minute. You always have to use new canning lids when you're doing this so that you have a fresh rubber or whatever the material is seal, and that'll help ensure that we have safe sealed up food after we're through doing the hot water bath process. Now we're going to place these jars back into the hot water canning pot for processing. In my area, the correct time at boiling is 10 minutes. You'll have to find out what the specifications are to safely process and can in your area. It varies by altitude and other factors. So be sure to find something that you're following from Ball or a known source. There are federal canning safety standards online and all kinds of information for you to be sure that you're doing this properly. It's not worth taking a risk. Okay, we've boiled and processed our jars of jam for the specified time. Now we're just going to take them out and let them sit. This is the magic hour where we want to hear that all-important clicking sound of the canning lid snapping down. And I'll show you that here in a minute when these have cooled down just a bit. Okay, after the processing is over, and it might be kind of hard to see on the video here, but your lids need to be, if they've popped down, you heard that clicking sound, they need to be concave shape, and that's how you know that they're sealed. If they're still convex shape, they have a mound on them, then there's a problem with the seal. Sometimes, however, they need to sit for a while and cool down. I think I have one right here that's still not popped down. I'm not going to push on that, but as these things cool down, that very likely will snap in place. If it doesn't, I simply will put that jar in the refrigerator and we'll eat from it right away. The other jars that are sealed up can be placed in storage in a cool, dry location and will be good for at least 1 year. And then the last thing we do is we go ahead and write the date on top of the lid so that we know when we process this batch. We've got this many jars of end product from 2 gallons of blackberries. This is a great way to preserve food that you grow in your own backyard. This stuff is delicious. You can also take this blackberry jam and dilute it down with a little bit of water and make a syrup for ice cream, pancakes, and other uses. You have the satisfaction of growing it and making it right out of your own yard. And of course we have a little bit of leftover that we didn't jar up. That's black gold right there. We talk about growing and preserving your own food all the time on the channel. This is a lifestyle education that you're getting by planning and doing these things at this point in time before we're in some type of a crisis where you're not able to learn and provide any real food for you and your family. Blackberry jam is delicious, and it would add a element of normalcy into any home during a grid down or SHTF situation. If you like the content and the information that we provided for you in today's video, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button down below. That does help us out with the channel. And as always, remember, get ready so that you and your family can succeed and thrive.